What do you do in the first 5 seconds after something goes wrong? Not after you've had time to think about it. Not after you've figured out the perfect response. But right when the plan breaks. When something shifts. When what you expected no longer fits into reality. We like to believe we're adaptable. We like to think we can handle change. But most of us don't adapt immediately. We hesitate. We become rigid because we're holding on to what was supposed to happen instead of responding to what actually is. Have you ever watched a mime? They lay their hands flat against thin air, feeling out the edges of an invisible glass box. They push, they pull, they act completely trapped. But the box isn't real. Somewhere along the way, we do the exact same thing. We build these invisible walls of beliefs and expectations around ourselves. We convince ourselves that situations are plain and simple, black and white. And when adversity hits and nothing goes our way, we freeze. We confine ourselves to a prison that was never really there. We restrict ourselves from finding a solution because we're too busy pushing against a wall of our own rigidity. I know this intimately because I am a debater. And if there is one thing a debater loves, it's a script. In many ways, debate is the ultimate exercise of being a mime. We construct these rigid walls of logic around ourselves. We build a case, script our rebuttals, and walk onto the platform, determined to defend our box against anyone who tries to break it. We operate under the illusion that if we just stick to our script, we'll win. During one specific debate round, I walked in completely confident. I had my notes color-coded. I thought me and my team had the absolute strongest case. I sat at my desk, my pen in hand, ready to dismantle whatever my opponent was about to say. I was safe inside my box. But then, my opponent spoke. And instead of furiously writing down my counterattacks, my pen just stopped. For the first time in my entire public speaking journey, I paused. Not because I was confused, but because what they said had actually made sense. I remember sitting there, replaying their logic in my head, and realizing with a sinking feeling that my argument had a massive blind spot. The situation wasn't black and white anymore. Their perspective didn't just have merit, it shattered my case completely. I was faced with a choice that we all face when we encounter adversity. I could stick to my script. I could stand up, push against that invisible glass wall, and defend a flawed point just to save face. I could pretend I was still right. Or I could step outside of my comfort zone. When my turn came to speak, I changed my approach on spot. I dropped my main, carefully researched points. I admitted the nuance in their argument, and responded directly to the reality of the room, rather than the script in my notebook. It wasn't as polished as what I had prepared. It was messy. It was incredibly uncomfortable to admit that someone else's perspective held more truth than mine. But by dropping my defenses, my argument actually became stronger. That was the moment everything shifted for me. I realized that true resilience isn't about how strongly you can defend your original plan. It's about your willingness to drop your defenses and adapt when the facts change. That willingness is essential to us as humans. We live in an unscripted world. We're stepping into an era where AI and technology are changing everything. Our education, our careers, our daily routines. And it's not going to give us clear answers or hand us out a script. It's going to throw things at us and expect us to adapt. If we approach the future like mimes, stubbornly pushing against change, insisting the world follow our script, we will be left behind. Whenever I find myself stuck in a difficult situation, I usually go to my mom and ask her what I should do. But almost every time, she refuses to give me an answer. She looks at me and says, "Figure your way out." It used to frustrate me. But I now realize that she was teaching me the exact same lesson I learned in that debate round. She was teaching me that when the plan fails, you don't panic, you adapt. Charles Darwin famously noted that survival doesn't belong to the strongest. It doesn't belong to the most intelligent. It belongs to the one most responsive to change. So, what do you do in the first 5 seconds after something goes wrong? Stop being a mime. Stop pushing against a glass wall that isn't there. The next time you face a challenge, or the next time you find yourself entirely confident that your side is the only right side, pause. Let yourself be uncomfortable. Step outside of your box. Because the moment you let go of that script, you find the true resilience to face whatever comes next. Thank you.